More than 150 years after the Civil War, there is a new push across the South to take down Confederate monuments. In at least 5 states, critics say the statutes celebrate slavery and secession. Defenders argue the memorials honor Southern heritage. Officials in Austin, Texas, and Louisville, Kentucky have already voted to remove statues. New Orleans is about to do the same. Jan Crawford is in Charlottesville, Virginia, with the fight over a monument to a famous Confederate general. Jan, good morning.
Good morning, Charlie. So this statue of Robert E. Lee was put up nearly 100 years ago. But here, as in other cities across the South, these Confederate symbols now are at the center of a bitter debate about how we define our past as we move forward as a nation.
They're relics of a painful past, memorials to a war, generals whose names are etched in history. Stonewall Jackson, Robert E. Lee.
We must go! We must go!
But now there are new battlegrounds, from Charlottesville to New Orleans. Confederate monuments have been vandalized, and some cities have voted to remove them, all part of a public debate over whether these statues memorialize racism.
But symbolism matters.
When you say symbolism matters, that's a symbol of what?
It's a symbol, in my personal opinion, white supremacy, and it's a symbol that we cannot have in the middle of our city.
Charlottesville City Councilman Wes Bellamy has led the fight to move the town's statue of Robert E. Lee. But opponents, led by attorney Charles Weber, argue the statue symbolizes something else.
These are war memorials that exist for one purpose: to honor the men who fought. It's not to promote a cause of the war, it's not to glorify war, it's to honor the men who fought.
Weber points to a Virginia law, similar to others across the South, that blocks cities and towns from removing war memorials.
This statue could never be moved. It has to stay here.
Yes.
Forever.
Yes.
Even though many people find this terribly offensive.
Offensive is a way to stop a conversation about the meaning of the statute. All right, it's not a way to start the conversation.
University of South Carolina professor Thomas Brown studies Confederate symbols.
There are hundreds of these across the landscape of the South. The controversies over removal of monuments are partly over, well, who's going to decide exactly what that public space is going to endorse?
For years, these fights focused on the Confederate flag, which largely has disappeared from public spaces, a reflection of changing attitudes. The opposition to change runs deep and can turn personal.
I've been told I should be taken behind the watershed.
In Charlottesville, supporters of the statue unearthed crude tweets written by Bellamy as a younger man, and he also was targeted with death threats. But Bellamy feels his fight is justified.
We've seen there's still a lot of issues in regards to race here in this community, and the only way for us to move forward is to deal with them head on.
Now, while this legal fight continues, city officials here in Charlottesville will review a plan next week with recommendations on where to put this 28-foot statue if it's ever allowed to be moved, a problem other cities across the South are likely to have to face. Norah?
Jan, thank you. It's an important story. It's going to spark a lot of debate.
Absolutely. From the flag to statues.
Yes. Changing history.